Time to dive into this 68 Black Panel Pro Reverb. This amp came in a good while ago, and I just did the first part showing pretty much everything that needs to be done, including the output transformer and speakers and baffle and all kinds of stuff. And I wanted to wait till all the parts arrived, and then when all the parts finally arrived, I was deep in a bunch of other stuff. And it's just hard to balance everything when you're a one-man show. But everything's here, and it is time. So we're going to start with the filter board, the filter caps, and the doghouse. So we're going to get all this stuff out first. Things wrapped around each other in odd and bad ways. And if you're doing this for the first time, take notes of where everything used to go, or draw pictures, or take photos. People have described these videos as meditative, and I appreciate that. I'll find the compliment in it. One thing you may not know, and I try to keep it out of my voice because I don't want to be an anxious sounding person, but I get so frustrated with this part of things where you have to go slow. I want to zip, 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 bang, and done, but that's not how the world works. I'm inherently an impatient person, but I would be a hungry, impatient person if I were to rush some of this amp stuff. And I get people asking, well, I see your videos and you take forever to do simple things. I mean, who can afford that hourly rate? Blah, 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 blah. Well, could I do things faster? Maybe. I doubt I could do things faster and as well. And I've seen a lot of amps come in where someone obviously was working fast, and the amps have problems. That's why they come to me. All right, those two chassis screws that hold the board in place have a little bit of zinc oxide on them, white rust, and maybe some caustic stuff from those electrolytics. So they're going to stay in this little WD-40 bath while I do other things. I'll start with just cleaning the backing board. Put that to the side, let it evaporate. It's got all these under the board connections, and I'm going to recreate them properly and get these big globs of yuck out. Let's take a measurement on these two resistors. They started off life as 220K carbon composites. They're the voltage balance resistors across a series capacitors. 237, 279.6. So yeah, this one's still in spec. This one was drifting wildly. That's why they get changed out. Hey man, you want to buy some used tone? Before, after. much, much better. Very clean. You can't do anything about some of the staining of the board where that leak was. You know, those chemicals can affect things with it. It should be fine. You can see here where these two resistors, particularly this one, got too hot. There's a little burn on the board there. And I will put the new resistors in just slightly off the board just to help with that. So, all right, resistors and jumpers in place, all mechanically secure before solder is applied. I've got that 1K mounted a little bit higher off the board. It's a 1K and a 4.7K. Previous guy had them reversed. The amp will sound as it was designed this way. Probably not necessary on this one. I didn't elevate the 4.7, but since that board had a little bit of a burn spot, just be extra safe. But this 2 watt should never burn with a fairly small current it experiences. Let's get the caps in place. All right, everything's in place, the caps and the components, and everything's mechanically secure before any solder is applied. They each have crimps, and they each have a little bit of silicone beneath them, but not too much, just enough to hold it in place, not so much that there's a big gummy yucky mess. All the leads have these nice curves, so there's no excess, but there's no real tension, and there's no stress where the leads join the bodies, because this is secure, or will be secure fully once it's soldered. It's already pretty secure, and the mass of the cap body is borne by the silicone against the board. Aside from the 220K resistors down there, which are already soldered just because I want to reach them before I put these caps in place, the other solder joints will get made once the board is in place, because if I solder them up and then screw them in place, the board flexes, the solder joints can be stressed. So, ooh, pretty. Everything back where it ought to be, everything pretty. That resistor is mounted up just over that heat damaged area. You can see on this brown wire that had the insulation, the cloth had burned a little bit from the previous resistor failing in that area. And that resistor probably failed because this cap, the original cap that was here, went bad. So it probably was a short, just drawing way too much current and exceeded the rating of that resistor, which burned the area of the board, burned the insulation on that wire a bit. But here where this wire crosses others, where it needs to be insulation again, it's fine. So the only place where it's iffy is over here where it's already connected to the thing. So there's no point insulating this little section of wire from the 2 things it's soldered to, 3 things it's soldered to. So this is good. Let's, I think we're gonna pull the power transformer and bias card next, but I'm gonna have some more coffee first. Time to get things disconnected. It's getting disconnected. Sorry. I don't feel old until I remember how long ago 1990 was. I was 19 years old. Jesus, where did this time go? All right, I'm going to have to heat up the chassis iron to get that one out. But let's do a test while we're in the area to see how good those 68 solder joints were. Actually, this has been redone when they changed out the power transformer for this one with the way too much current capability. See, there's quite a bit of flex there on that solder joint. I'll break that. Well, can't quite break it with these pliers, but can with others. Let me heat up the chassis iron real quick. Well, I say real quick, it's going to take about 10 minutes or so for that to come up to temp. So some of this stuff I'm just going to snip out. Like this derived bias tap they did for this transformer from the HT tap. We don't need that. All right, I got the primaries disconnected. Got the filaments going to the lamp disconnected. There's a heater center tap wire going down here to a really nasty looking solder joint. But let's get this terminal block off the wall first, so we can access the next layer. Let's see. May need a little bit of reminding that solder is supposed to flow. There we go. Oh, there's another one here. Not connected to anything, but there's another one here. Okay. The old solder is out, and those spots on the chassis are clean. And the new transformer will go right in here, and we'll tighten the nuts, but we're not going to redo the grounds using transformer bolt mounted ground lugs like this old one. We're going to solder directly to the chassis. But right now, while everything is out, I can clean up the connections to the lamp, make sure the lamp is tight, it doesn't feel very tight, and redo the bias board first, because it's a lot easier to do when I can get in there. There's nothing here in the way. So get yet some more coffee and then get to that. Let's undo the connections to the lamp first. So I want to get all this excess globs out. See if I can see the damn thing. All right, let me take a look at those vis-a-vis the insulation. I think it'd be all right. And this glob with some of that excess that they had on there. All right, that's ready to go back into the amplifier. All right, bias board in, new ground made directly to chassis here, very clean. It's not as pretty as it would have been if I was doing this from scratch, because it had all that pooled up solder from the previous stuff, but it is very secure. It's a good solder joint, and I'll be making some more as I put the whole thing back together. But now it's time to put the power transformer back in place. Well, the new transformer is mounted. Strangely, I cannot find my big box of 8x32 Keps nuts. So I've just got some regular nuts holding in place right now, and I'll run and get some more Keps nuts and really crank those down. But I can go ahead and do all the wiring and the grounds. A note on this power transformer. This is a Hammond 290DX, I believe. And it is a, let me confirm that. Yeah, 290DX. And it is a very good quality transformer. I had ordered a Mercury for this amp. It's just a little bit, maybe a little bit more reliable long term, though there's nothing wrong with a Hammond. My price difference on them was negligible. And I ordered it for my buddy Patrick, and it did not ship. I didn't hear anything, and I called, and he was out of the office. And turns out that Patrick was very, very ill. And over a period of weeks, he deteriorated fairly quickly, and he passed away. And everyone at Mercury was both kind of numbed and kind of lost, because he was really running the nuts and bolts of the guitar transformer division. And, if you needed to know something, you asked Patrick. And due to all that, the order kind of got lost in the chaos. And meanwhile, I need to get this amp done, so I just ordered this Hammond, and it's absolutely fine. It'll sound great. I've been very upset about losing Patrick. He was a friend of mine, and of many, many years, and more than not being able to just call him up and get a transformer. I'm sure whoever is his replacement, eventually I'll be able to have that kind of relationship with, and the business side will catch back up. Mercury's will get everything together that they need to have together. But I will always miss my bud, because there are people you run into in this business that you just hit it off with. And Patrick was a really great guy, and I always look forward to our conversations. And if any of his friends or family are watching this, much love to you and yours. Patrick will be missed, and not because he could get me an iron for these glorified toys. He was a good guy. Anyway, I digress. So I'm going to go ahead and make all the new connections, and then later I'll get some caps nuts in here. But I'm not going to show all this stuff getting wired up, because this video is already pretty long. I'm just going to show you what it looks like after this is connected, and I think that'll be the end of this video. And the next one we'll move on to the output sockets and the power cable wiring, and eventually we will get to all the nasty stuff in the preamp. But filter caps, bias, power, AC power, octal socket wiring, that's the bedrock stuff. I need to know that all that is great before I worry what's happening in the preamp, because it doesn't matter what's happening in the preamp if any of this stuff is wrong. So let me pause this, cut a whole bunch of wires, and do a whole bunch of soldering, and we'll be in a nice place to resume. Okay, this is a good stopping point. So these are the primary connections, and I'll redo those when I redo the AC power cable connections, including a AC safety ground that I'll make here, where this already has some solder from that terminal strip that was in there. So we got the new 5-volt connections, including the wire going off to the B+. We've got the new red HT connections there. We've got the heater, the filament going here. I have the 100 ohm half-watt resistors going to this ground, the bias ground, rather than directly to here. It's the same ground. It's just much easier to solder to that, because you don't have to use a chassis iron. So should there be a partial short, one of these resistors would fuse, protecting the secondary of the filament supply. And it's much easier to change out when it's here. You can do it with a regular soldering iron rather than doing it to chassis. This green and white striped wire is the filament center tap. I'm going to tape that off. It's not going to be used because I've got the artificial center tap, which both gives a better center tap reference, and it also, these resistors will act as fuses to protect that secondary. I've got the bias tap going over to the bias board. Got the HT center tap and the shield of the transformer going here, along with the filament. The reservoir cap negative going to ground right there. Here and here are new wires, which will go to the cathode connections on the octal sockets. So all the chassis iron work is done, with the exception of that AC safety ground, which will be later. So this is where I'm going to stop it now, and I'll gotta go run some errands and do some general Sunday stuff, and I'll get some caps nuts while I'm out.